Descript is amazing, but infuriating. I'm here to fix that. I don't want to waste your time, so know this going in. This tutorial is tailored to a beginner. You've created a Descript account, you've downloaded the app, but you have yet to start using it. So watch along, use the chapters to skip ahead, then pause the video if you need, and practice the skill as we go along. So opening Descript for the very first time, find the application on your computer and open it. In my case, it's in my dock. I'm using it to record this video right now, so it is already open in the background. And I'm just going to hit Window. And this is the very first view you will see when you open Descript. This is my Workspace View. And a couple terms that you need to know in Descript is you have an account and you have a drive. Your account is associated with your email. It's what you signed up for Descript with. And once you have an account made, you get a drive. And you can call your drive whatever you want. In my case, it's the name of my company, Descript Mastery. And within your drive, you'll have projects. So these are my projects, all of my projects. There's literally thousands of them inside of my drive. And you can sort them. You can sort them by the name, duration, size, who the owner is, if you have multiple editors and teammates collaborating inside of your drive, the date it was created, and the date it was last viewed. You can choose to have this view where it's just the name and a little thumbnail next to each project, or you can click on this button and you get a bigger grid type of view. You can also sort by downloaded videos, meaning these videos are on your hard drive. You can sort by owned by me, shared by me. And that depends, once again, on your teammates, people that are in your drive or that have shared videos with you. The other thing to know about the workspace is you also have your quick recordings. This means you recorded a video on your computer using Descript's built-in screen recorder. There is AI speakers. This is your text-to-speech voice. You can train the AI on your own voice. And I've talked about that in other videos as well as in my course. And we won't go into it today because it's a little bit more advanced than what we're talking about. Then you have your templates. Templates are a way you can create things that you use across projects and apply a standard set of settings to pretty much anything. And templates, I create templates as well. It's another service I offer. And we'll talk about that in a later video. And then you have your workspace. This is a more organized version of the projects that we saw before. Projects are everything, all of your projects. The workspace is a different way to organize things. You can create folders and put your projects in said folders. Let's go ahead and create a project. All we're going to do is go into the top right, this big blue button that says plus new, click on that, and you have a choice of video project, audio project, quick recording, or remote recording. We're going to do a video project for the sake of this tutorial. This is our project. Now, defining terms once again. Inside of a project, there are one or more compositions. There is always at least one composition. And notice it says press enter to continue with an empty composition. So this is our composition inside of the project. You can think of the project as the folder. And we can create multiple compositions by clicking on the name of the project here in the top left. And this drop down, this is a left click, creates this drop down, and you can enable multiple compositions. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And now I have a composition called Untitled inside of my project called Untitled Project. If I click on this again, I can name it. So let me just call this November tutorial. And then this composition is going to be composition 1. Oops, and it renamed it'll automatically name the project the name of my composition if I only have one composition. So let me create a composition 2, and I can name it in the way that I just showed you, or I can click out of there and I can click this part that says Untitled and then name it there. Composition dos. Okay, so now that I have a composition 1 and a composition 2, I'm going to rename the project for November tutorial. So I had a little typo there. I hit enter and it locks that change in. Now I have my composition 1 and my composition 2. And the reason for having multiple compositions is it allows you to break up your project. So maybe you have one really long interview and you make that composition 1. Composition 2 through X, you could have as many compositions as you want, could be clips from your longer video. Or maybe you have, when I'm creating a course, a certain topic, like my Descript mastery course, the topic of captions will be its own project. And then within that, I can make compositions that are subtopics about captions. So one could be applying captions. The next composition could be adjusting captions. The third composition could be deleting captions. I don't know, that would be a really short video, but you get the idea. Projects, broad, compositions, more focused. We have our basic understanding of how that works. Now let me familiarize you with the interface here. So on our left side, this is where our scene thumbnails will go. Right now, we only have one scene. It's a one scene composition. I'll explain scenes later, but scenes are how we break up our composition. Inside of our composition, this one here, under our label, is where our transcript will go. When we add a video file, Descript automatically transcribes it. Transcription meaning that it'll take the audio, the words that people are speaking in your video, and it'll put it into a text format. And it does a pretty good job. It's pretty accurate, but it's not perfect. And one of the big things that you need to do as a Descript editor is fix up your transcript. And that's something that we'll talk a lot about in today's tutorial. Okay, so again, scene, thumbnail, transcript. The next one over is our canvas. It's got this darker gray section around the outside, and then it's got a black empty space. This is where our video preview will go once we add it. Right now, there's nothing in it, so it's just black. Moving on beyond that is our properties bar. It's open by default, and this is where you can make changes to things that you add. You can make audio effects, you can change your titles, you can change where things are positioned, you can change the order of layers. All of these are things we're going to talk about. So this is the properties bar, and you can close it by clicking on that button right there. Right next to it is a comments icon. If you click on that, you can get access to the comments. This is a way you can communicate and collaborate with teammates. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. And then the very last major UI thing to know about is your timeline. By default, you cannot see it. This is it on the bottom, the bar at the bottom here. It's closed right now. There is a play button, there's a backwards button, a forwards button, and a play speed button. All of those are grayed out right now because we don't have any media inside of our composition. So to show the timeline, oh, and I'm mistaken, we can't even look at it until media has been added. So let's start there. How do we add media to our project? So we can import any type of media we want. We can import for the most part, not everything, but you can import any type of image, pretty much any type of video, audio. Those are the big ones that you need to make a video or podcast. So to do that, there's several ways we can get there. You can hit this plus button. You can hit add file. You can hit the media bin and add a file here. You can drag and drop a file into your composition. But for simplicity, I'm going to do add file. And now this brings us back to the media bin that I just showed you. It's just another way to get here. But I'm going to start by adding some stock footage. So Descript comes with built-in videos. If you click on this tab right here, it's to the right of files. Again, files in this case, in the top left, is the files that you are bringing from your own computer. These are the files you own. Next to that is the B-roll. The stock footage. So this is stock footage that comes included with Descript. And if, depending on your plan, you're going to see a different number of options that you have available here. I am on the Pro plan, so I can see all of the footage that they have. If you're on a free or creator plan, you might see a little lock in the bottom corner, and that's indicating to you that it's locked to you unless you upgrade your plan. You can scroll through this list, or there is also a search bar here at the top. It says search video. And in here, you could type in any keyword. So let's say I'm looking for a scene of a gym. I can type in gym, and all these images that have been tagged with the word gym are here. Now I can hover my mouse over it and it'll preview it, and it'll show a little timestamp at the bottom that tells me how long that video is. And I can simply click on one. So for example, I click on that and it added that video to my composition. Now that it's been added, my numbers and my options in the bottom are darkened. You can see the previous marker, the play button, and the next marker all have been highlighted in dark, as well as the playback speed. I can go anywhere from a half speed all the way up to 3x, or I can increase and decrease it incrementally with these bottom options. And the play button, if I click on it, I can preview the video. I can change the size of the canvas by putting my mouse right here on this vertical gray line in between the transcription section and the canvas, and I can resize it. Window sizing is kind of tricky in Descript. It makes your preview so small compared to some other video editors. One way that you can make it bigger is by clicking on this button in the top right that says expand canvas. If I click on that, it makes it basically full screen. Exit out of that, simply click on it once again in the top right corner, that is. It's a left click. And then the other thing that happened once we added our video is we can now expand our timeline. So this little button in the top or bottom left corner, if you left click on it, that opens up our timeline. And this horizontal gray line that separates the timeline from our other windows can be click and expand it. Left click and drag up to expand. And now this is what we call our timeline. This is where our layers, and everything is a layer when you add it. Every object, whether it's a video, a photo, a title, or anything else, it becomes a layer in our project. So the video that I added is this blue layer right here. And that's a thumbnail of the video that we added. And it also has a little, the title of this video appears on our timeline. It says concentrated sportsman doing hard exercise with heavy ropes while working out alone in dark gym. And if you remember, I used gym to search this. So if I'd done any of those keywords, I would have been able to find this. exercise ropes, if I had typed in sportsman, hard exercise, any of those things, and this video would have come up as one of the options. Okay, right now this is a supporting layer. It is not my script layer. Your script layer is your bottom layer, and this is what Descript will transcribe. So I'm going to add one of those in a moment. For now, let's continue with adding our other layers. So we have our video from the stock footage, from the stock video. You also have another option for backgrounds. There's video here and backgrounds right below the search bar. Backgrounds are a little bit different. They're usually a little more plain. They don't have a subject necessarily like the video that we have. They might, like some of these do, as you can tell, but some of them are just plain like panning across a gym. Gym is still typed into my search bar, so these are the results I have. But moving on, if we go to GIFs, GIFs are like these memes. They're these short videos with no sound, and they're usually funny. They're usually clips from a movie. There's something interesting that you can add to your composition to spice things up a little bit. There's Giphy GIFs, which are these here, and there's Giphy stickers, which are usually a transparent background. So they're things that you can apply on top of your video to add something to it. So let's just, once again, they play automatically. They loop. They're usually very short, just 1 or 2 seconds. They loop, and then you can add them to your project by clicking on it. So this is what I mean by it overlays on your project. It doesn't have a background. It's just transparent around, in this case, the bicep that is just flexing. And if I play it, I hit this back button to move my playhead to the start of my video. If I hit the play button, now you can see that arm flexing. Very good. And that GIF, this is the GIF layer. This is the ropes layer. If you see where my mouse is, right above it is the GIF layer. This is telling me that it is on top of the other layer. I can reorder them so that this layer is behind the gym layer, the guy doing the ropes, and then it will disappear. I right clicked on the layer, I hit send backward, and it is now behind, so I'm unable to see it. If I click it again and I say bring forward, left click, it is now up in front where I can see it. Okay, back to the media bin. We can go to images. Images are still photos. These are not moving. They're not animated. It's just a photo. It's a JPEG, a PNG, or some other type of photo file. So I can pick, for example, a photo of some weights. I can click it, and it defaults to my top layer. So this is going to cover up the 2 layers that I have behind it. And I can resize it. By default, it was a little smaller than the aspect ratio of my video. My video is a landscape mode, is 16:9, and this picture was slightly smaller than it. So I can resize it. I can click on the blue lines and resize it by dragging it. I can also click in the corners. There's these little white dots, and I can click and resize. Descript has tried to make it like editing a PowerPoint as far as the layers, being able to resize elements. You can click it and you can drag it around to reposition things. If you notice these little red lines that appear on my screen, where is one? There it is. Right. Oh, it's a tiny little window. There it is. That red perforated line that appears, that's telling me that the center of my photo is the center vertically, that is in the center of the view angle. So this is now the center of this photo is centered up with what would display when this video gets exported or published. Okay, so that's how to interpret that. Now, if I click on this image, there's a couple of options here. I can choose to fill the screen with it. That'll automatically resize it to fill the entire canvas. I can turn it into a circle. If you see there, I'm going to just reposition this and make it smaller. It's automatically cropped it so that it becomes a circle. I can make it a landscape, which is what it was originally. I can make it a portrait mode, which would be good for like TikTok, YouTube Shorts, that type of thing. I can resize it so that it just fills a portion of my screen in this case, or do whatever I want with it. I can crop it, which allows me to cut off some of the photo. I'm clicking the corners and I'm just cropping what is visible. So like if I just want the weights, maybe I'm showing this guy working out and I'm talking about weights, I can just show that portion of it. I can rotate it like so. I can flip it. If I want to get the other side of that weight, that particular weight, I can reposition it into the corner. I can flip it vertically. I can click on these three dots, and here is my layer order, this very top thing that pops down. When I click on those three dots, I can click bring to front, which it already is in the front. Once again, I can tell because if I look at my layers, there's 1, 2, 3 layers, and this is the top layer telling me that it's the frontmost layer. So I could do that there. Bring to front brings it to the top. Bring forward brings it 1 layer forward. Send backward sends it 1 layer backwards. So if I do that, now the bicep is in front. The bicep is the topmost layer, and the gym equipment is the second layer. Okay, the 3 dots once again, layer order. If I do send to back, now that layer is in the very back. Okay. Let me bring it back forward 1. Bring forward, there it is. Okay, moving on with our 3 dots options here. And again, that's what pops up when you select the layer. If I select the big layer, there it is. If I select that layer, there it is. But let's just use the photo for now. 3 dots. I can do view media, replace media if I want to change the photo. So let me go ahead and click on that. And let's say I want to use these dumbbells instead. It says loading media in the bottom right, and this toast in the bottom center, media added. And there is our dumbbells. Now it's a little bit off center. It's a little bit to the left. So the way I adjust that is double left click. Or if you're on a computer with a trackpad, you're on a laptop, it'll just be a 1-finger click. So 1, 2, and now I can click in there and move the weights around until it's in a place I like it. Let me just, yeah, right there is fine. And I can change how zoomed in it is. Maybe I want this to fill. So I click on that number there. Right now it's 212%. I can click and I can drag to the right to make it bigger. I can drag to the left to make it smaller. And then when I like where it is, I hit done. And there it is. That is my new layer, my new image. Okay. Back to the 3 dots, we can change the source, which is which layer is currently selected. Right now I have the close-up of a woman sitting at a gym. You can't even see her, but she's behind there, behind those 2 dumbbells. I can crop, I can reset the crop, which will put my photo back to its original zoom and position inside of that frame. I can cut, which hopefully you're familiar with cutting, copying, and pasting. You can do that in Descript. I could copy this. Actually, let me cut it. Let me go ahead and cut it. Cutting removes it from the project, but it is in my clipboard, my computer's clipboard. So if I go to composition 2, this other one that we created, and I click into here, and then I right click and I say paste. Or you can also do Control V on your keyboard or Command V on a Windows. And now look at that. There is our project in another composition. Let's go back to composition 1. Again, this drop down and then find composition 1. And here we are. Okay, next thing is adding audio. So with the audio, we can add music or we can add sound effects. Both are below the search bar, and we can find music. If you click on the play button with a left click, it'll preview that song, and it's got a name for the song. And over here on the far right in gray, it's got the duration of the song. So this is a 2-minute and 20-second soundtrack, and I'm going to go ahead and play a little preview. Cool, love it. To add it, all we do is click on the name of the song itself. And in the bottom right, it tells us loading media, and it's done. Added layer, I can do include in script. Include in script means that this audio file would get transcribed. Now it's music, so there's no speaking. It doesn't make sense to transcribe it, so I'm not going to do that. But that would be what I would click to add that to my transcription. Now I'm going to go ahead and click show my timeline. I'm going to expand it by putting my mouse on the horizontal separator, clicking and sliding up to make it bigger. Now the audio file is currently selected, so it's in dark blue. If I click away, notice that it's green. Audio files are green in Descript. That is how you tell them apart from any other layer. All the other layers will be blue and audio is green. Additionally, audio has these sound waves. This black part that you see indicates that this is a sound wave. Now I can zoom in on this by, do you see this bottom, this very light gray bar on the bottom? That is my progress bar. And right now it's expanded across the entire thing because I can see my entire project in one view. But there's little dots on the end of that bar. And if I click on it, there it is. Your mouse will turn into those two-sided arrows. I can click on it and I can make it smaller. It's hard to see. It's really small on the bottom of my window, but I am shrinking and expanding this bar. So if I shrink it, it zooms in on the timeline. If I expand it by dragging to the right, I'm holding my mouse down this entire time, dragging to the right, I'm zooming out. So my timeline picture is getting smaller. Now, if I zoom in, I'm able to see the sound waves more granularly. And I can also click right here on the horizontal separator, drag it up, and I can see it bigger. I can see the sound waves bigger, that is. Okay, and when I click on the sound wave layer, I have a number of options to edit it. And what I can do there is go into the properties bar, this one right here that we talked about at the very beginning, click it, and not only does this work with the audio layer, this works with the gym layer, this works with the bicep layer, and with each one, I'm going to have a different set of options in my property bar, different set of options that I can do to label things or to manipulate things, change things, alter things in ways that I want. So again, back to the audio layer, the green layer, I have a certain set of options, including the duration. It defaults to 1x, which is a normal play speed. It means it plays at 1 times its normal speed. I can make that 2x, which means it'll play at double speed. It'll play twice as fast, which with music doesn't really make sense to do, but with certain other layers, you can see how that might be useful. I'm going to return it back to 1x. I just click in that box and type in the number on my keyboard, and then I hit enter to lock in the change. Okay, there it is. Now, below that, it's asking me if it wants to play once, meaning it'll just play through and then that layer will end, that audio layer will end. Or I can loop it, meaning if I had a really long project and this 2-minute and 20-second audio file, I wanted it to play throughout the whole thing, I could loop it so that once it ends one playthrough, it simply repeats and starts a second playthrough and a third playthrough. until the end of my composition. I'm not going to do that for now. I'll just leave it on once. You can choose where that layer starts. Right now, it starts at the beginning at the 0.00 second mark. But let's say the first 5 seconds are silent. There's nothing there. I could start it at 5 seconds by clicking in there and typing in the number 5. And now this audio file is going to start at 5 seconds. Next on is the audio settings itself. You can set the volume in decibels. Right now, Descript has automatically lowered it to negative 15.8 decibels. It's determined that that is a good background audio level for this file to be at. And so let's play it. Let's see how it sounds. It's pretty quiet, but as a background audio, that's probably good. I usually do for a talking head video. I'll make the background a negative 20 by typing in -20 or -25, -25 decibels. And that's usually pretty good and quiet where it's not overpowering the speaker. Yeah, super quiet now. You can mute a layer. Like let's say I don't want to hear this layer, but I want to keep it in there. I can simply hit this little speaker button and it's now muted and it says -infinity decibels. I can bring it back by clicking on it once again, just a left click, boom, and now our audio file is back. Oh, and something interesting, when I brought it back, it's at plus 0.0 decibels. Before, if you remember, it was at -15. So it did not remember that setting. It's going to be really loud now. So yeah, with the decibel scale, 0 is not nothing. 0 is something loud, and going into the positive numbers will be really loud. Going into the negative numbers, you'll still be able to hear it, but it's starting to get quieter. If you hit these 3 dots, you get your advanced audio settings. You can set the layer audio. You can set the pan, which is if you have 2 speakers, a left and a right speaker. This is telling it which speaker to come out most strong. So if you're in the middle, it'll come out of both equally. And you can go down to, you can click in that box and drag right to go to 100%, which will come out of the left speaker, or you can go to -100%, which will come out of, the left will come out of the -100 and +100 will come out of your right speaker. So that's what that is. Very few situations where you have to use that, but that's what that means. You can close out of that with the little X in the top right, and we're out of it. The next thing is audio effects. So if you hit the plus button here, you have Studio Sound. Studio Sound uses AI to edit your spoken word audio. If we have time, I'll demonstrate that later. Dynamics, you can set a compressor, limiter. Getting into the weeds of audio editing is beyond the scope of this beginning tutorial. But if you know what you're doing with audio, this is where you find compressor, limiter, ducking. You can set your EQ. You can add creative effects and reverb, which is also kind of a creative effect. So won't go into that just yet. So the next thing we're going to do is transcribe a file and start messing around with a transcription. So for demonstration purposes, I put a video onto my computer and I just clicked and dragged the file. This is the file in my cursor right now, and I'm simply going to drop it into my composition like so. And the first thing it does is it asks to set the transcription language. I have it set to English, and I also have it set to always prompt. You can turn that off if you so desire. But if you don't want a transcript, do know that transcription is limited on the free and creator plans. Actually, it's limited on all of them. The limit just happens to be 30 hours worth of transcription on the pro plan, 10 hours on the creator plan, and 1 hour on the free plan. So be aware that you might be limited and only transcribe what you really need. But you'll hit this transcription button to go ahead and execute, or you'll hit that X to say, no, I don't want to transcribe. I'm going to transcribe. It says transcribing. Your transcript will be ready in a few minutes. The name of the file, the number of speakers, which you can set if you have more than one. This one's just me, so I'm not going to worry about it. And you can label the speakers. And this comes into play with using your AI speakers, the voices that you've trained on your AI voice. Don't need it for this one, but you could do that. And hit done to finish. Okay, and the transcription's already done. It's usually pretty quick. It does several minutes in 20 seconds or so, I would say, up to if you're, putting an hour or 2 hours in there, it might take 5 or 10 minutes. So let's go ahead and play it, and I'll show you what this looks like. So I hit this back button to go to the very start of my project, and then I hit the play button. My voice is drowned out by the audio. So right off the bat, let's click on that audio layer. Let's go to our audio, left click, drag to the left, take that down to about -18 decibels, release to lock in that change, hit the back button and play again. Testing. Oh, and I think I have some weird effects applied. So let's click on my layer. I'm going to click on the view of myself. And notice when I click on that, it also highlights in purple my script layer. Once again, now we can see the script now that it's been added. This is the bottommost layer. And the interesting thing is, it's actually in my top layer right now. So what I can do is click on it, go to the 3 dots, layer order, and send to back. Left click, and it's now in the back, which I'm going to go ahead and delete this workout layer. So I just select it. It's selected in blue, the layer itself on my timeline, and hit delete on my keyboard. And it's gone. So now I can just see myself. I'm going to click on my layer once again, and I'm going to play it. Let's see how it sounds. It's a little echoey. I think I exported it with a reverb on. So what I'm going to do is apply studio sound. Studio sound over here on the right side in the properties bar. Remember, this is our properties bar. We have our audio effects heading, studio sound, and there's this little toggle. And by default, it's off. It's white, so I know it's off. If I click it, it toggles on. I see a little progress bar spinning. It says processing, as well as this toast in the bottom right, applying studio sound to studio sound demo. And I'll just give it a moment to apply while I work on other things. So I can also change the audio level of this track. I can make it louder, clicking, dragging to the right, clicking, dragging to the left to make it quieter. Let's just make it like +2. That's fine. There we go. Good enough. Okay, so the really important thing to know is this is our transcript. And I was just talking about nonsense. I was talking about the studio sound feature in this short video, but I can click anywhere in the transcript to move my playhead, and the playhead is where I can get a little preview of my video. So I can click anywhere in here. I could label things like where I'm talking about things. So if I say, let's apply it later and see how it sounds, I can add a marker, which is I can hit this little plus button. Excuse me, you can't add a marker that way anymore. I could do insert. So I put my cursor somewhere in the transcript, right click, hit insert on the drop down, and then you get all sorts of things. You can add files here, you can add images, you can add comments. I'm going to add a marker. It's also a pound sign on your keyboard. And there we go. A marker creates 2 returns. So it puts the part after where I selected below it, and everything else is above it. And then highlighted in blue, it says marker. If I start typing, I can call this, oops, let me undo. So I had that marker selected. I could start talking about studio sound here. And this is a way to internally label my project. So notice it's bolded on there. There's this little marker, these dots on the left where I can drag to change the placement. I can click and move it to a different position if I so desire. It's also put a marker here on the left, and it's exactly what I labeled it, talking about studio sound here. It's also created a new button in our top right where it says jump to marker. So if we had a really long project with a lot of markers, this is a very useful way to organize our transcript, and then you can quickly jump to different markers. Okay, so the most important part of Descript, the way that they've intended for you to edit is transcript based. So all of your work should be done in here if it's a talking head video, and they make it extremely easy. So let's say it spelled a word wrong. I could hit C on my computer keyboard and click on the word that is misspelled. Let's say no right here is N-O, but it was supposed to be the other type of no. It's supposed to be K-N-O-E. I can type that into the bar that pops up after I went into correct mode, and I can lock in that change by hitting correct. And now it's changed it on my transcript, and it's changed it down here on my timeline. The audio isn't affected. I didn't edit the audio in any way. I only edited the transcript in this particular case. Now, why would you edit the transcript? Well, if you are creating captions, that would be a reason to have an accurate transcript. Or if you are going to export this transcript and maybe you want to print it out, maybe you want to add this to your website as a blog, you could do that. And it would be important to have an accurate transcript. So that's kind of a silly demonstration, but that is how you go into correct mode. Another way is using your mouse. You can select words. So I just selected, I left click and dragged my mouse from the word I'm all the way down to after the word microphone. That's an entire sentence. And when I released my mouse, this menu pops up. You can do Ask AI. That's beyond the scope of this brief tutorial, but there's a lot of AI tools available to you. You can do Replace, where you could record over it. You could make a new video. You can Regenerate, which will use AI to correct the speech. Again, beyond the scope of this tutorial, but those are some pretty cool options that are available to you. You can hit Correct, which is the mode we saw before, where you can type in different words. You can correct the spelling of things. You can just completely correct that selection of words. You can change how it looks. You can make it bold. You can italicize it if you so desire. This strikeout option will remove it. It's called ignoring. And notice it's now stricken out and it's light gray. And it's been removed from here. So you've effectively deleted it from your composition. The difference in terminology in Descript between ignoring and deleting is that deleting will also get rid of it from your transcript. So ignore is a way to keep it here for your awareness if you want to bring it back. And to bring it back, you can just click on, while you have it highlighted still, click on the word again, and it's unignored. It's back on your timeline. It's back in your transcript. You can highlight things using this drop down here. This could be a way to internally organize things. It could be a way to later on create social media clips on certain topics out of your longer video. That's beyond the scope of this video, but that's what you could do with the highlighting option. You can duplicate it to a new composition or an existing composition. There's our composition 2 that we created earlier. I could copy this into composition 2 and it would put that selected line in that composition. or I could put it by itself in a new composition. I can leave a comment on it by clicking on that little comment bubble. And now over here on the right, you can see I have a place to add a comment. Here is my comment to you. And if there was other editors in this project with me, I could hit return here, and now they'll be able to see my comment. And this is useful for providing commentary on the feedback to an editor. You could say, please remove this part, please make this part a little bit clearer, please change the lighting on this part. You could do all sorts of comments right there. Okay, let me select another piece of text. I'm clicking, left clicking, dragging, and releasing. And here is our menu once again. I have these 3 dots, which should look familiar by now. There's an insert where I can insert any type of media. I can play it. I can do a spot audition. I'll talk about that in another video. I can cut it. I can copy it. I can paste it. All sorts of useful things right there. Okay, one last really cool thing. My favorite shortcut in Descript is, I already showed you the letter C. If you press C on your keyboard and you click on something, oops, don't want that to happen. I accidentally added a C there. Didn't mean to do that. If I highlight some words and I press the letter C, I go into correct mode and I can type in, change what's written there. I'm going to go ahead and X out of that. If I hold the letter X, notice when I put I'm holding X on my keyboard, and you can see that my cursor now has a little circle below it with a period and a comma. This is a really cool, really handy feature. If I go to this word applied and I click on it while I'm still holding X, notice that it turned into a comma. And then if I click it again, it gets rid of the comma. And then I click it again, it adds a period. So really easy way to change punctuation if Descript messed it up, if the AI messed up the punctuation. And the cool thing about this is it automatically changes the capitalization. So right now there's a period after testing, and this is capitalized. So if I hold X, I click, now it's a comma, and this is lowercase. Click again, comma's gone, this is still lowercase. Hold X, click again. Now there's a period, and this is capitalized. So pretty cool and easy, quick way to change punctuation. Next is the letter Z, as in zebra, on your keyboard. Hold Z, hover over a word, and you can see our cursor now has a little A, lowercase a, and an uppercase a. What this will do is toggle between capitalization. Click, and it's lowercase. Click, and it's uppercase. Click, and it's lowercase. So quick and easy way to go through your project and capitalize or uncapitalize things. Okay, so we have created a project. We've gotten familiarized with the layout. We have added layers to our project. We've done some light introduction to editing. The last step, when you have everything how you want, the last step is to publish and or export our project. So if we go into the top right of our project, there is this publish button. Click on it. We have a drop down. We have 2 more options. We have export or publish. To define terms here, export means it'll save the file to your computer as a .mp4. Or as other options, we can do, let's just go into export. We can go to video, which is a .mp4. We can do audio, which is just like it sounds, audio only. We can do a GIF, which is a short video with no audio. We can do timeline, which means it'll save it, our layers and everything else, to be exported into another type of video editor, like Premiere, DaVinci Resolve, or Final Cut, for example. You can export it and then continue editing in those softwares if you so desired. You can export just the transcript as a Word document, as a Markdown document, as a plain text document, and that'll have the italics and the bold that we added. It would have headings and markers and all of that in the transcript. You can edit just the subtitles, which would be a subtitle file that you could use on YouTube or elsewhere. Okay, so once again, this was all exporting that we talked about. These are different export options, which will save this composition to your computer. And then once you got all your settings, you've narrowed down what you want to export, you just hit the export button and it'll put that file onto your computer. So moving on to publish. Publish is actually the default. When we first click on our publish button, it defaults to publish. So this is what Descript tries to get you to do, and in most cases might be all you need. So the first one is a web link. The web link is, it generates a Descript link where on Descript Cloud, where you can watch and share your video from, and it's super useful. I use this all the time. My entire course is made using Descript web links. But your other options, if you click on that, just a left click, you get YouTube, Blueberry, Buzzsprout, and these are mostly all podcast hosts. And the idea is you can publish your video directly to these sources. So if you do YouTube, it prompts you to give the project a name. It defaults to the name that we gave it in here, which was just composition 1. And you can give it a description. It just defaults to say, this is a video about composition 1. Now, here's something really cool about the marker that we added. It automatically does timestamps. So timestamp 00, the very beginning of your video, will just be the name of your composition. But the timestamp we added, 11 seconds in, the marker that we added is called Talking About Studio Sound here. And it's made a timestamp out of that marker. So that is a pretty cool way to ease up your workload. It takes a lot of the heavy lifting out of publishing videos. Next, you can set a category, whether you want it to be autos and vehicles, film and animation, or whatever else on this list. You can do that here with that drop down. You can set tags so that you're more SEO optimized while people are searching for your video. You can change the access. You can make it private. You can make it public if you want it to go live right away, or you can make it unlisted. I recommend make it private so that you have a chance to check it out before it goes live, before it's before people can see it. Then you'll have to hit sign in. This will open up your browser and it'll ask you to find your YouTube channel that you want to publish it to. You would select that. And then once you've done that, it might prompt you for your password, might prompt you for some verification details. Then it'll bring you back to Descript and you'll have to hit publish once again to make that change final. After that, depending on the length of your video, you might have to wait a few seconds up to a few minutes, up to longer for a very long video, depending, and it'll publish your video to YouTube. Then if you go into your YouTube studio, you have a chance to change all of these settings once again. You can change the description, the location, the tags, all that kind of normal stuff. And you can choose to set your video live if you want, or do whatever else you want to it. Okay, so that is publishing and exporting. We've gone through the full life cycle. We've gone from opening Descript for the very first time, getting familiar with the workspace, creating a project, adding video files, editing those video files, all the way through to publishing. So at a high level, you are now no longer an absolute beginner. You know what you're doing. Hopefully this was useful. I do a tutorial every month. I do a webinar every month. November's webinar is tomorrow, November 30th. I hope to see you there. I also have a Descript course. I do Descript one-on-one tutoring where you can ask me questions and have an hour of my time to work on your projects or do anything else you want. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far, I'm glad to have you here. Bye.